Question for you, pen pals. What is the most you would be willing to pay for a premium paper notebook? At our shop, we're no stranger to the idea of a $10, $25, or $30 journal. But a $220 notebook? No, we're not talking about a laptop. We're talking about a Gucci paper notebook. In this video, we're going to see if the Gucci notebook is worth its price tag. Stick around to the end, and I'll tell you how to enter our giveaway to win that notebook. If you use fountain pens as much as I do, paper quality is a big concern. Of course, I expect to spend more money on fountain pen friendly paper that can handle saturated inks as well as stub and flex nib pens. My current journal of choice is the Endless Recorder with 68 GSM Japanese Tomoe River paper. For notes and writing samples, I use Rhodia 80 GSM notepads and Clairefontaine 90 GSM paper made in France. Full disclosure, these notebooks are stocked at Goldspot Pens and will serve as points of comparison when evaluating the Gucci notebook. The Endless Recorder with Tomoe River paper sells for $23.50, the Rhodia Dot Pad goes for $7.50, and this Clairefontaine Paris notebook is $8.50. So what might we expect now that we've spent over $200 on one notebook? Are we just paying for the Gucci brand name? Let's unbox it and find out. All right, so first of all, I think a lot of people are used to seeing if anybody's bought a notebook before, you're kind of used to seeing like what a notebook usually might be packaged in. And this came as a bit of a surprise when this particular type of package showed up on the doorstep. Let's open this up here. So you can see this is not just any generic plain box. They've got a printed sort of floral motif on the inside. Very nice. We've got some paper which we'll discard here, and looks like we received a gift from Gucci along with a card too, and what looks like possibly a tag and this is a burlap sack or something, or what is this? I believe this is would be a little sock for your notebook. We'll see if that fits in there. These were purchased of our own company funds. It's not that we're considering carrying the Gucci brand at our store. So this is just something that we want to explore out of curiosity, just to see what the level of notebook that they would bring to the table, especially with such a high price point, and then compare them to items that we regularly offer on the Goldspot Pens website. Let's open the Gucci card first and see what they've sent to us here. So it says, "Thank you for shopping at Gucci.com. Each item has been skillfully designed and made using the highest quality materials by Italian artisans. Please contact us if you have any questions, email us." And then there's a little QR code that has the GG in the middle of it, which kind of looks cool. I'm curious to see what this exactly is here. It looks like a tag. It's got some warnings on it. Here is what the notebook is packaged in. Put this off to the side. And we have the same green floral print design we have here in the two-part box. Lift it up here. And inside we've got some tissue paper. And of course it has Gucci all over here. All right. We got here. So this is the large notebook with cat. It's got a solid hardcover feel. This red part here is Demetra, is what they say, a Demetra spine, and it's got the Gucci logo here. The GG Supreme canvas cover is very iconic and can be seen on a lot of different Gucci products like handbags, cases, various other accessories. The notebook has got a elastic band closure. And as you can see along the edges here, they are gilded, or I say gilt. And it's got this little cartoon, hand-drawn cat, which, has a certain whimsical charm, I guess. So we open up the notebook. It's got a really tight spine. I'm guessing it's this material that they use for the spine here. So you've got a red inner paper lining that's for the cover and the first page. Then it kind of opens up like almost like a storybook here. So you've got this bordered illustration with the cat, a couple of dotted lines, and it says Gucci, of course. You've got the little cat at the bottom, and of course Gucci. So no page numberings. The paper itself, it feels pretty smooth. It feels a little bit on the lighter side. On the very ending part here, we've got the same red back pages and back inside cover. And Gucci is very subtly debossed on the back cover, and it says Made in Italy. It is 120 lined pages total. It's a general purpose sort of design to this that, you know, it does have its charm, especially if you like the cat or the cat illustration that's on here. It is your usual A5 size, and by usual, I'll show you what I mean. Well, this is a little bit less than A5 over here, but this is the Tomoe River. This is the Endless Recorder journal here. So comparing them both side by side, the Endless is just a little bit shorter, a little bit more narrow. But also, similarly to the Clairefontaine, this is the Clairefontaine notebook. So the Gucci is a little bit bigger than that. And then I picked, although the Rhodia dot pad comes in a whole bunch of different sizes, I picked one that was closest to an A5 size just to give you a good idea of like how this notebook is sized. It is sized 8.9 inches by 6.3. Very luxurious looking. I mean, is it $200 good looking? Yeah, you know, like the gilded pages here look pretty solid, especially if you put them all together and you put the notebook all together again. It really looks great, but you really lose the effect of that, I think, once you have the notebook open and you're flipping the pages. So for $220, you've got yourself 120 pages. That comes in a little bit high on the dollar per page amount. Whereas with the Endless Notebook, you have 192 pages. With the Clairefontaine, you have 96. And with the Rhodia dot pad, you have 80 sheets to work with. Now, this is a hard, perfect bound type notebook. It is glue bound to the back of the spine that's here, although like the spine kind of lifts up a little bit. If you try to lay it down flat, it just wants to kind of naturally come up, so it's not like really the greatest because you're trying to combine all of those pages into just the one glued area here, which is then, it's also stitched together as well. You have a page marker, which is something that a nice journal usually ought to have. It's a red satin ribbon page marker that's here, but noticeably there's no back pocket that's there. With the Endless Recorder, you do get not only one page marker, you get two page markers, so you have two bookmarks that are here. You also get an inside back pocket to throw little tickets, you know, receipts, scraps of paper. The other more inexpensive options, of course, don't come with the extra bells and whistles that you might expect, but they do, in their own regard, have pretty good quality about them, and that's mostly in the paper. But before I just talk about the paper, I did talk about binding here, and this is the Tomoe River Endless Recorder Journal. So you could see, like, I don't have to fight it to get it to lay open like that, like with the, like it wants to shut. I mean, it'll probably break in a little bit over time, especially as you kind of start to expand and use it. So the big thing that would be on my mind, being that I'm a fountain pen enthusiast, is whether or not this notebook will be able to handle fountain pen ink. And I've seen a lot of really nice notebooks in my career as a pen enthusiast and pen purveyor that are like, they have a really nice presentation, but the moment that a nib gets on them with the ink, it just, everything falls apart from there. So it's like it just starts feathering, it bleeds and everything. So I wanted to leave this notebook untouched so that we could do a ink test on a page and see what we could see. So I brought a whole bunch of pens with me. I have a glass dip nib pen, which I'll use the J. Herbin 1670 Anniversary Rouge Hematite. I have Waterman Mysterious Blue, which I'll use in a Esterbrook JR, and this is the new pumpkin latte finish. That's a medium nib. Then I have the Le Bon 986 Guilloche, and this is a medium nib, and I wrote with Sailor Sumire in this pen. Then, just to switch it up, I also have a Retro 51 Ref 5P capless rollerball refill, and this is a gel ink rollerball refill, and it is in a Retro 51 F14 Tomcat, which is exclusive to Goldspot pens. And just to give all of our pencil fans a spot here, we have a Retro 51 HB 1.15 millimeter pencil lead, and that is in this Retro 51 Amadeus pencil. Then getting back to the fountain pens, I have the Leonardo Momento Zero Grande, and this is in the primary manipulation with an elastic fine nib, and it's inked with Pure Pens Cadwallader, I believe that's how you pronounce it. Then last but not least, I have the Opus 88. This is the demonstrator with a 1.5 millimeter stub nib inked up with Pilot Iroshizuku Konpeki. So as you can see this is my standard, okay? So this is Tomoe River 68 GSM paper. So this is my standard that I operate off of, which I realize that it's not necessarily many other people's standards, but I love Tomoe River paper for the fact that you get a really bright, bold color on the paper. You get the most amount of shading you could find, and the most amount of sheen. And even despite the fact that this paper is super smooth and also thin, you can see some show through to the other side, but you don't definitely see any bleed through, and you see no feathering. So where will Gucci kind of stack up with these options? Let's find out. I'll grab me some of this J. Herbin Anniversary ink. So this is like one of the most saturated inks that I could find just kind of randomly on my desk. I'll just kind of scribble in this box. First impression here, I mean, the glass dip nib is not the smoothest nib, of course. But it does feel, I get like a really high sensation of feedback on the paper that kind of feels a lot different than, let's say, Clairefontaine or Tomoe River. It's a lot more toothier. But so far, though, it's holding up, even though it is it feels like a thinner paper, but it is not feathering, nor is it bleeding through. Nor does it have much show through either, which is impressive. Now that I've written with, proper fountain pen nib, that I'm familiar with how this nib usually feels on paper, I do sense a certain level of feedback when I'm writing with it, even though this is a medium nib. But it's not entirely unpleasant. It's kind of on the equivalent of, let's say, like Leuchtturm. It has a very textured sort of paper. It hasn't feathered or bled through, and it's keeping the color quite consistent, I would say, with the Clairefontaine, which is like more of an off-white sort of cream-colored paper. And you could hear it if it's picking it up on the microphone. You actually can hear the scritchiness, as I like to say, because it's not scratchy, but you could definitely hear the feedback that this nib, which is ordinarily it's actually a really nice smooth nib for a steel nib, and it's really picking up a lot of the texture of the paper especially if you hear it kind of scratching back and forth. Next, we have the Retro 51 rollerball. Okay, so pretty much what you would expect with a Retro rollerball refill, writes between, let's say, like a medium and a broad kind of size, and it has a fairly dense amount of ink that even with the Tomoe River paper, because it's so dense, it's actually, you could see that the most of any of the other colors that are there. You could see the retro black ink show up through the most. It still keeps it pretty manageable where you could certainly write on both sides of this paper. So far, I'm pretty impressed. So let's get this. This is the Retro 51 pencil. This is an HB lead, which is kind of in the middle of, because if you're familiar with the lead grades, H is for a harder lead, so and then B's are for a softer lead, so HB is like right in the middle. So it's not, so it really does perform very nicely on this, being that the paper's got a bit more tooth. I feel like it pulls the graphite more than, let's say, something that's super smooth like the Tomoe River. It's kind of like you have to put a little bit more pressure just to get a darker mark on it. If you look at the comparison of this version of the pencil, which is like where I started off with, and then this here, I think it starts off a lot thinner, and then by the time I'm writing over here, because the fact that the paper's so textured, it already starts to make the tip of it like more blunt as you go along. So you're gonna have to like turn this as you write with it to keep it as tight of a line as possible. Now, definitely the feedback is certainly felt when flexing, because every time that you're putting more pressure into it, I just feel like the nib, especially this being a fine nib, digs more into the texture of the paper, and you certainly feel like you're picking up a bunch of paper fibers in here. So flex nibs are not going to be very pleasurable to write with. You're going to feel like you're almost tearing into the page. But that being said, I mean, just look though, it really is not feathering. You're starting to see some bleed through in certain of the letters here, but that's also while flexing. So I'm digging more into the page as I'm trying to open up the tines and provide that line variation. And then also too, the ink being delivered is more as a higher volume, so you're getting a lot more of an intense amount of ink in what's being torn away at the page, basically, because it's so heavily textured. The flex nibs do great on the Tomoe River paper. No bleed throughs there. There's also, it's so much smoother too. And same thing I would say with the Clairefontaine paper as well. You're not seeing any show through pretty much here. And then also with the Rhodia. Rhodia probably is like the least accommodating of these three that we usually carry. For the last pen, we went with a very thick 1.5 millimeter stub from this pen here. This is an Opus 88 Demonstrator. So this has probably got the highest degree of ink flow out of all of the pens that we've surveyed here. And we've also inked it with the perennial favorite Pilot Iroshizuku Konpeki. I mean, for a 1.5 millimeter stub and such a really nice bright saturated ink like Konpeki is, it handles it really well. I have to say, like, I'm very impressed with the fact that it is not succumbing to any sort of bleeding or feathering on the paper here. And let's see, show through is minimal. Yeah, so I mean, even with the Tomoe River paper, this Gucci notebook, has just about the same amount of show through, because it is a little bit on the thinner side, but like the Tomoe River, holds the ink very well, with exception of the flex nib, which you see there, just kind of had a little bit of some bleed through to the other side here. Clairefontaine shows through a lot less. It's the Rhodia dot grid notebook. Show through is very minimal. I mean, kudos to them for putting in actual fountain pen friendly paper that could handle fountain pen ink. They're actually staying and they're behaving on the page, and they look pretty good too. I mean, you're seeing some shading with the Sumire. You're seeing definitely some shading with Konpeki, and you could see the sheen and the shimmer with the anniversary inks here too. But is it worth $220? Is it going to be worth that much above the $23.50 price point of an endless recorder with Tomoe River paper? I think a lot of it has to do with, of course, the presentation. Presentation, that's what it's all about when it comes to the luxury game, is that you have all of this extra stuff. And really, it is mostly about this design that I think you're going to be paying for. So if it's something that you need to have something that is a Gucci product that really shows the level of lifestyle luxury that you like to engage with, then this is something that you could certainly get into and then use fountain pens and other inks on. Gucci, not bad. Very, very nice job with the packaging, the presentation, and also the paper quality as well. So how would you use the Gucci notebook if you won the giveaway? Enter for a chance to win this notebook by hitting the like button and commenting with your answer below. On November 30th, 2021, we'll randomly pick one winner from the comments who shall receive this $220 notebook. And hey, I might even throw in this Paris notebook as well. I mean, I wrote it in already, so, but these will be the ones that you're getting. Good luck, everybody. Before you go overspending on a brand name pen, I suggest taking a look at our top 5 most underrated fountain pens in this video here. Get into the daily practice of writing with 10 tips to kickstart a journaling habit right there. Subscribe to the Goldspot Pens channel for more helpful how-tos, unboxings, and pen reviews right over there. Thank you for watching, and stay inky, my friends. Take care.